Okay, just a quick video on David Bohm's book on the special theory of relativity. And in Basil J. Haley's recent talk, he recommends reading the appendix as crucial to understanding this book, where David Bohm talks about perception. And so I opened it up and immediately found this section on music. In music, the property of stimuli is much more clearly seen. As one is listening to a tune, the notes heard earlier continue to reverberate in the mind while each note comes in. One may suddenly perceive the overall structure of a piece of music at a certain moment in this process. But evidently, the very last note to be received is not the sole basis of such an understanding. Rather, it is the whole structure of tones reverberating in the mind. These tones have manifold relationships which are not restricted to their time order. To grasp these relationships is essential to the understanding of the music. The effort to regard the essential content of the music in terms of its time order could then lead to too narrow a way of looking at the problem, which would tend to produce confusion. Okay, so what I would add to this is that the music is inherent to just one note of listening, because the overtones and undertones resonate as is just from listening to the source of one note. And that's why they're called natural overtones and natural undertones. And so you have meaning inherent to the number ratios of the one note, and that meaning is the future and the past overlapping, because the ratio is either smaller or greater than the one note, and the time order reverses. And so that's why when he says that these relationships are not restricted to their time order, and so that's explained with if you have a 1 and you call it a C, then the frequency of 3 is either G or F, depending on the order of the time. And so you have both 3/2 is C to G, and then 2/3 is C to F. And so you have that undertone and overtone as a different meaning of the 3 at the same time of the future and the past, in relation to the 1. And so when you have the 2/3 as an undertone, and then that will double as 4/3, but since 4/3 does not exist in relation to the 1, that creates a new 1. And so the 1 ends up not being a materialistic origin of a string that you can contain, and instead it's what they call the infinite spiral of fifths. And that's what makes it non-commutative with the future and the past, because in physics, the time and frequency is a linear operator. So you have an inherent switch. When you convert time to frequency, it takes a certain amount of time, because you're measuring time and frequency as spatial symmetry. But when you just rely on the 2 and the 3 and the 1, it's no longer spatial, and it's just this non-commutative overlap, since the 3 is both F and G at the same time. So it's not a mutual exclusion of opposites, as in would occur in normal logic. And so you get this quantum logic of the neither this nor that is the origin of the one. So it's kind of fascinating that he uses this same example of music to explain relativity, but then he relies on that same understanding of music to explain the quantum potential. And I was recommended this book as being influenced by Milič Čapek, I think is how you pronounce his name, but he was the Hungarian physics professor, or he was actually a philosophy of science professor who wrote a book on Bergsonian physics, calling it time-space instead of space-time, and that David Bohm had been influenced by that concept of putting time as primary to space. And so that's what Bohm is hinting at with this this understanding of music is what Bergson also relies on. And so once I dig into the book, I'll get a better understanding of his explanation of relativity in terms of time, space, instead of space-time. And but it's this final chapter on perception that should be the most fascinating.